I didn't always believe my fourth grade teacher. I'm sure she wasn't intentionally teaching false information, but sometimes it happened anyway. I believed what she was teaching about science and social studies, math and spelling. I even trusted what she said about penmanship, which was that I needed to practice a lot more. But I think she was mistaken when it came to joy. You see, there were times when laughter and delight would bubble up in class. Not the kind of laughter that was at anyone's expense, but the kind that erupts when hearing a humorous passage in a book. Or when my best friend Carrie, who is one of the funniest people I know, would make a comment about the history lesson that would actually help us all remember what was being shared. Right in the middle of the joy and laughter, the teacher would say, "That's enough." And when the room had returned to an acceptable level of somberness, she would continue. Now, I appreciate that she had a history lesson to teach, but with those two simple words, "That's enough," she was also offering an implicit lesson on joy. That there was only a certain amount that was acceptable, and that more than that would be too much. And it wouldn't fit in the box marked joy that she'd probably labeled in her neat, even cursive. It may not have been her intention to try to teach that our joy was too much, but it certainly was the impact. What lessons have you been given about joy? Does joy need to fit neatly in a box? How much is enough? Where does joy come from? And who is worthy of it? Many of the world's religions and philosophies have something to say about joy, and that could be many sermons in unto themselves. But today I share just some snippets. Hinduism teaches that joy can be experienced right here in this life, and that joy is something that each person can access. And if a person should want joy that lasts beyond this life, one needs a spiritual life to tend to one's spirit as well as one's body and mind. Buddhism also reflects these teachings, that there's joy to be experienced here on earth, and that one can be released from suffering through practices of mindfulness and meditation. The Vietnamese Buddhist teacher Thich Nhat Hanh said, "We can smile, breathe, walk, and eat our meals in a way that allows us to be in touch with the abundance of happiness that is available. We are very good at preparing to live," he said, "but not very good at living. We know how to sacrifice 10 years for a diploma, and we're willing to work very hard to get a job, a car, a house, and so on. But we have difficulty remembering that we are alive in the present moment, the only moment that there is for us to be alive. We need only to be awake, alive in the present moment." Judaism and the Torah invite Jewish people into a full range of human emotion and behaviors, including joy. Rabbi Israel Salanter wrote that to be a good Jew, one has to have every human quality and its opposite. In the book of Ecclesiastes, one can read that there is a time to cry and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance. Feeling joy, then, is a gift from God. Feeling joy is part of what it means to be human. Christian texts also express joy as a gift from God. In the book of John, chapter 15, Jesus is preaching to an assembled crowd about love and then says, I have told you this, that my joy may be in you and that your joy may be complete. Now, it's good to know that the book of John was written over 100 years after Jesus was killed by the Roman Empire. So this is not likely to be a direct quote. But it is an expression of what his followers were saying a century after he died, that to follow Jesus's teaching is to feel joy. Today is the third Sunday of Advent, a season of waiting in the 4 weeks before Christmas. The candle on an Advent wreath that is lit on this Sunday is for joy. It is known as the shepherd's candle, referring to the story of the angels appearing to shepherds and proclaiming the birth of a king. That sounds like surprising joy, to be sure. Joy can also come from our connections with the earth and is expressed through earth-centered traditions and indigenous peoples. Robyn, while Kimmerer, a member of the Potawatomi Nation, writes about the complications of feeling joy. She says, even a wounded world is feeding us. Even a wounded world holds us, giving us moments of wonder and joy. I choose joy over despair, she continues, not because I have my head in the sand, but because joy is what the earth gives me daily, and I must return the gift. For folks who don't know, Robyn Wall Kimmerer grew up in this congregation. And it is a gift to have gotten to know her a bit and to hear her stories of the joy of being here. For many humanists, it is connection with other people that brings joy. And humanists teach that joy arises from within us rather than from outside of us. Where do you think joy comes from? What, if anything, gives you joy? And do you, like Robyn Wall Kimmerer, feel inspired to return the gift? Unitarian Universalism teaches that we don't have to all have the same answers to those questions. And I find joy in that. This morning, our story for all ages was about a little dragon who kept his heart in a box in hopes of trying to keep it safe. I've been noticing boxes recently and how sometimes boxes are helpful. They can hold things and protect them. It can be satisfying to find just the right box. I know some people really love boxes. Sometimes boxes for our identities can allow others to know a few things about us in ways that fit and feel true. I'm a middle-aged, white, cisgender woman. I am queer. I am a parent, a sister, a spouse. But not all such boxes bring joy. Society sometimes tries to put us into boxes that would limit how we behave based on our age, our size, our education, our sex, our gender, our employment, how we make and choose family, our ethnicity, or our religion, and more. Those kinds of boxes are made of assumptions and judgments. They are too small and they keep us from knowing the amazing complex truth about one another. Other boxes are made out of expectations, expectations about what we should be doing or feeling or buying. Expectations, assumptions, and judgments can get in the way of joy. While there is risk involved, it can be a wonderful thing to get outside of those boxes.
There are a lot of things to love about the Christmas movie Elf. Francisco, that's fun to say. Buddy the Elf, what's your favorite color? Smiling's my favorite. Son of a nutcracker. I could go on and on. If you're not familiar with the film, it's the story of a human, Buddy, who gets raised by Christmas elves and goes to New York City to find his biological father when he learns that he is, in fact, human. As you can imagine, his biological father is quite surprised, as is his wife and their son. And of course, there is a love interest, Jovi, who Buddy meets while working in Movie Land's equivalent of Macy's. It's one of my favorite Christmas movies, and I'm definitely an annoying person to watch it with because I quote pretty much the whole thing in real time. I'm a lot of fun. But among all the laughs and some gross parts, no thank you to maple syrup on spaghetti for breakfast, and the part where he eats the already chewed gum stuck under the subway railing always makes me gag. There's one aspect of the film that has always sweetly lingered in the background for me. It's the way that both Jovi and Buddy's biological dad's wife, Emily, just accept Buddy for who he is. Yeah, he's a little different. I mean, he was raised as an elf. He's a grown man who is full of wonder, unbridled enthusiasm, and naivety. He doesn't fit neatly into the boxes that New Yorkers, Americans, heck, humans might expect. And Jovi and Emily don't just accept him, they encourage him and foster those things that make him who he is. They don't try to make him conform. They don't try to hide him. They let him take risks by being himself and are there for him when he runs into resistance for his authenticity. Did you think you were going to go to church today and perhaps learn a lesson from Elf? Probably not. I submit that we should try to be like Emily and Jovi, to foster the outside the box living those around us may attempt, and to be there to support and encourage them when the risk becomes difficult or fails. About 11 years ago, my friends did this for me. Since my late teens, flying has always been problematic for me. I've been known to draw blood from my fingernails digging into the person sitting next to me, sorry, mom, or to spend pretty much the entire flight virtually stalking the flight attendants for any indication they might be concerned that the plane is in imminent danger of going down. Again, I'm a lot of fun. Further, I wasn't a terribly confident person, definitely not a risk taker. And then in 2011, my friend and colleague Mary offered me a chaperone spot on her upcoming trip with students to France and Italy. She knew that I didn't fly well and that I never had traveled overseas before. But she encouraged me to step outside my comfort zone because she saw something in me that told her that not only would I enjoy overseas travel, that I might even be good at it. Either that or she was desperate for chaperones since the number of student travelers had grown to 69. I'd like to think it was the former. That trip was life-changing for me. She now not only encouraged me to step outside my safety box, but gave me support to help me emerge into this new world of travel. She paired me with another chaperone who is not only a seasoned world traveler, but is also my best friend. He took the baton from Mary and supported my risk on that trip. He helped me through my anticipated anxieties, distracting me with window shopping via the Sky Mall magazine on the very rough flight from Albany to Washington, D.C., and affording me opportunities to build my confidence, like when a student lost her plane ticket from Frankfurt to Paris, and he stayed with her until they could catch the next flight, and I took the remaining 16 students on to Paris by myself. Thanks, Steve. It was terrifying, but I did it. I got through the flight on my own, navigated the fact that my bag got lost somewhere between Albany and Paris, and got the kids, many of whom were traveling overseas for the first time as well, on and off the metro at the right stops for dinner, most importantly. Did I devolve into a pool of jet lagged and relieved tears upon returning to the hotel with all our kids safe and sound? Sure did. But I was really proud of myself. It felt good to take that risk and find a part of myself I didn't know existed. Fast forward to 2022. I've now traveled to a total of 15 countries in the last 11 years. And I've now taken Mary's job of being the group leader for these student trips. And now I'm able to pay it forward. This past summer, I had 2 student trips, one to England, France, Belgium, and the Netherlands that was COVID postponed from the summer of 2021, and one to Ecuador and the Galapagos. That was the 2022 trip. Needless to say, I needed a lot of chaperones. So I pulled a Mary. Robyn Wall Kimmerer might say, I returned the gift. I asked my friend and colleague, who was exactly where I was 11 years ago, literally. She's 11 years younger than me and does not fly well. She'd never traveled overseas and is claustrophobic. All of the things I was. Twinsies. Again, fun. We're fun people. I asked her to chaperone. I knew she would be great at it if she'd just give herself the chance, if she pushed herself outside of her safety box. I paired her with a chaperone who she is friends with and who is a seasoned traveler. I gave her protected space when she was having trouble on a ride on the tube that was particularly anxiety-inducing. But man, she was a phenomenal chaperone. The kids loved her because she's awesome and vulnerable and hilarious. She took charge of some pretty difficult situations, and she was the first one to sign up to chaperone next summer's trip to Italy and Spain. I wouldn't be surprised if 11 years from now, I'm passing the group leader position along to her. As others take risks at exposing their authentic selves to the light, we, as their families, friends, and community members, should be there for them, to encourage them, defend them, support them when they're met with resistance. Sometimes this can be done with very little sacrifice. One of my favorite follows on Twitter, or what's left of it now, is a guy by the name of Rex Chapman, and he often posts videos of people being good humans to each other and captions it with, "It costs nothing to be kind." And sometimes that's the case. An encouraging word when someone is applying for their dream job, being physically present for a child who is stepping out of their comfort zone and singing in public for the first time, inviting a kid who's hanging out at the basketball court by herself to come and play a game with you and your friends. Little sacrifice on your part, big impact on the risk taker. But sometimes there is sacrifice on your part. Sometimes providing that support for someone means you are exposing a new part of who you are as well. These are often harder. It can be difficult when a friend is taking a risk that doesn't involve you. You have to give them space to explore and be there for them when they're ready, understanding that you may not be first in their life at the moment. This one can be hard for me. Conversely, when someone you don't know as well is coming into a community you already inhabit, be welcoming. Try not to be territorial. This one can be hard for me. I was just showing my students the movie Loving as an introduction to our chapter on civil rights. This is the dramatized film about the real Supreme Court case of Loving versus Virginia from 1967, in which the court declared that the state laws outlawing interracial marriage were unconstitutional. In the story, Mildred and Richard Loving have to move from their home state of Virginia to Washington, D.C. to avoid a 25-year prison sentence for violating Virginia's miscegenation laws. Richard continues to work in Virginia, but Mildred moves in with a friend for years, with ultimately 3 small children. Think of the sacrifice of that friend who, in order to allow the Lovings to be married to the person they loved, despite what the law or others thought about it, gave up her time, her home, her privacy, and I mentioned the 3 little kids, probably some of her patience and sanity. Let's do this. Let's be those people who are there as a safety net, a cheerleader, a listening ear for those who are taking risks for joy. Let's consciously be there for them and with them. Perhaps their courage will inspire us to move a bit outside of our own boxes to risk joy.
Sometimes we need support and encouragement to risk joy or to think outside the box. Sometimes we may need a little inspiration, an invitation to perceive and experience the world a little differently. Palestinian American poet Naomi Shihab Nye found such inspiration from the words of her son when he was 2 and 3 years old. This is her poem from those words called One Boy Told Me. Music lives inside my legs. It's coming out when I talk. I'm going to send Valentines to people you don't even know. Oatmeal cookies make my throat gallop. Grown-ups keep their feet on the ground when they swing. I hate that. Don't ever say purpose again. Throw that word out. Don't talk big to me. When I grow up, my old names will live in the house where we live now. I'll come and visit them. Only one of my eyes is tired. The other eye and my body aren't. Is it true all metal was liquid first? Does that mean if we bought our car earlier, they could have served it in a cup? When you were in New York, I could see you in real life walking in my mind. I'll invite a bee to live in your shoe. What if you found your shoe full of honey? What if the clock said 6:92 instead of 6:30? Would you be scared? My tongue is the car wash for this spoon. Can noodles swim? My toes are dictionaries. Do you need any words? From now on, I'll only drink white milk on January 26th. What does minus mean? I never want to minus you. Just think, no one has ever seen the inside of this peanut. It is hard being a person. I do and don't love you. Isn't that happiness? Isn't that happiness? What kind of boxes about reality and shoes and clocks and bees and minusing might we need to set aside in order to have fantastic imaginations like this 3-year-old poet? Together, let us risk moving beyond boxes that limit and confine. Let us be like the little dragon, listening to our hearts and paying attention to what they are calling us to do. Let us give thanks for joy when it arrives, and humbly and gratefully return the gift. Salam, Shalom, Ashe, Namaste, Amen, and blessed be.